welcome to episode 055 of the WA Running Podcast. Recording on Monday, the 18th of November 2024. I don't know if you can hear outside, but it is absolutely pissing down at the moment, which is very strange in November. A lot to get through in today's ep as we recap the weekend's results, including the Sandman 50, Run Bibbulmun track stage race, and news of the Great World Race, which is 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. So with one of the legs being here in Perth over the weekend. Across the screen from me is my co-host, whose pre-race routine involves inhaling a ridiculous amount of ice cream the night before, a record number of Macca's ice cream cones back in the day. Chris the Metronome Shaw, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thanks. 14 soft serve cones, I reckon, in 2007. One of my proudest moments in my culinary endeavours, but, on to bigger and better things, I reckon.
Well, back then, the cost of an ice cream cone was 30 cents. So in today's day and age and the cost of living crisis, I think 14 will be a very expensive endeavor. But we are more successful now in our full-time jobs and careers, so probably could afford it now. But perhaps our 14-year-old selves wouldn't have afforded it back then.
No, well, I think I wasn't 14. I think I was about 21 when I had those ice creams. Yeah. Back in 2008, I reckon I was at David Jones in Karrinyup, working on the dock with a couple of old guys. In fact, Dave Perrich, our good friend, used to work there with me, actually. And back then, I was commuting to Karrinyup. So I was living in Como and cycling, I don't know, whatever it is, 20 kilometers to Karrinyup. But I didn't have a watch, didn't have Strava. I think I must have been using the Nike cycling app or something. Who even knows?
How did 14 come about? 14 ice cream cones.
It's probably the amount of change I had in my pocket at the time, I reckon.
And were you encouraged to eat 14, or was this a self-inflicted endeavor?
No, I had talked it up for a little while. I think I'd probably said that I could do 20, and I reckon I got to 14 with whatever money I had and cut my losses there, because I'm sure that any further ice cream would have probably resulted in a pretty bad morning the following day. So,
And ever since then and now, in terms of a pre-race routine, how many ice creams would you eat?
it's before a race, a marathon. It's definitely 2 scoops.
Yep.
In a cone. Has to be a cone. But if it's just a smaller event, say the Applecross Shoreline race that's coming up next week or the week after, probably just a couple of scoops of connoisseur from the tub will do me straight. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I mean, you're older, wiser, and more responsible now, right?
Exactly. And, very superstitious as well, right? So you do it once and it works. And so it goes back to my cricket playing days. I would eat ice cream before a match, and that would then encourage me to bowl well for 25 overs or whatever it was. Or, to stand out in the sun for 8 hours on a Saturday.
Well, I don't know how we segue this back into running, so I think I'm just going to cut it right there and go straight to our training week. So maybe we'll start with you, mate. How's your week been post Rio?
Yeah, obviously, I think last week when we recorded, had a bit of self-reflection after the DNF at Freo, and have continued to reflect on that a little bit. But at the same time, trying to put it behind me and do my best to get on with it and start to knuckle down on the training. And I think one of the reflections I had was that potentially my training between Sydney and Fremantle was a little bit all over the place and not well structured. So this week put together a couple of good sessions. One on the Tuesday, ran a 3x8 minute threshold. Wednesday had a lovely 75 minutes with Ordwin down at the at Mount Henry Bridge. We did a loop out to Applecross and through Mount Pleasant, and actually saw all the double guys there on Wednesday. They were obviously having their 3rd birthday for their run club. Thursday we ran workout at Lake Monger with yourself, Ordwin, and Matt Smarilli. On one of Tina's workouts, which was an absolute belter, but I'll leave that for you to run through. Friday, an hour easy, taking it, did a loop of the river. Funnily enough, on that Friday run, one of the things that, so I've got 2 boys, and my morning routine is to wake up at 4:30 and, go for a run by about 5:30 most mornings. And our youngest is 6, and he wakes up at 5 o'clock just about every day. And we thought maybe he's just an early waker, and but he gets into a pretty bad mood for the rest of the day. So what we've discovered is that it's my morning toilet routine that is actually waking him up every morning. Because on Friday, my wife Maddie said, "Hey, look, instead of going to the toilet, well, just don't flush it." And I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave it in there because I'm worried that it might crawl back out.
Yep.
And then, so instead, I went down. I pay like my rates to the city of Melville, right? So I decided I'd drive down to my local park and use the facilities there. At 5 o'clock in the morning, and you know what? Young George slept till 6 that morning. It may have only been an hour easy, but I made a lot of discoveries that morning. So, the last couple of runs this week, the Saturday wasn't in the morning, so we didn't have a problem. And then I did the same thing on Sunday. Went for a lovely run with a couple of Let's Cook members. Went with Alex Vickery and Migs Aquino. So we went for a 2-hour loop around the river.
Yep.
And Kings Park, and used the facilities at Optus Stadium. It was great.
Beautiful. So, a week of getting back on track, bit of discovery, a son that now sleeps very well on a weekday morning, and in a better mood now, all thanks to this discovery. So great week then. So how many Ks was that this week?
Maybe a touch over 90, somewhere around there.
Beautiful. So back to pretty decent mileage then. So what is in the works now? So you're putting the 10K Frio run behind you. What's coming up?
We've got the Applecross run on the 1st of December. We're going to run I'm going to run the 3K there. And I've got a couple of friends of mine who are listeners of the show who think they can beat me. So it'll be interesting to kind of go head to head there, which would be great. Test the mindset a little bit. And then after that, City Beach. Maybe that's the week after. Keep it short, do the 4K there. But then, longer term, I think the big thing, there's two key races I think for me next year will be Bunbury in April, which I'll aim for the half, and obviously Gold Coast we've spoken about before. So I may do Bridges depending on how my training's going, but that is the week before Bunbury. So we'll see what happens. It'll be one or the other, I think, will be the call there.
Yeah, and with now that you hit sub 3 in the marathon, do you have the drive of pushing beyond perhaps a 2:55 at Gold Coast, or what are your sort of long-term target with the marathon next year?
I mean, I'm generally have been in the past quite conservative in my goals, but then people like Perich kind of egg me on and push me to make them a little bit more aggressive, which is good. I think it's important to have a bit of perspective from outside. And I think I'd like to aim for a 2:45 at Gold Coast, which is like sub 4-minute Ks. I mean, it is a lot of time off of a 2:57, but I feel like if I were to aggregate out that 2:57 onto a flat course like Gold Coast, potentially it would have been closer to a 2:54 or something. So in the space of maybe going back from Sydney, if it's we're talking about another 10 months potentially with a bit of hard work, that shaving off another 10 minutes is not impossible. But we're getting older quickly, right? So it's not always going to be that we'll be getting quicker. Inevitably, there's going to be a point where we reach the cap. So, I mean, maybe Gold Coast will be that point for me, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, the pressures of the podcast, now that you've said 2 hours 45, we'll see come June next year where we are at.
Yeah, well, now it's public, isn't it? So
that's it.
I've got to put the work in. But, at the same time, I do think about that a little bit when we took this responsibility on, about how that would impact our performances or our kind of the pressure we put on ourselves. We're not obligated to perform in a particular way for anyone else but ourselves. And, I think it's just important to remember that inevitably we'll have bad races or we'll have performances that we're not, totally happy with. But as long as we keep doing our best, that's all we can do.
Yeah. Then I think, the thing that we need to remind ourselves is that it's for our enjoyment, right? And, we are competitive people, and that sort of spurs us on and drives us to work harder, or, spend more time running and doing all the mileage and stuff like that. But I think when it starts to be less enjoyable, then there is always the marathon grind, but at a certain point in time, if it's not enjoyable, then it might not be worth it. And I guess we've yet to find out when that ceiling has hit, right? That where we stop enjoying the whole journey of running and training for a marathon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one part of it comes down to the training, as you said, and I can't see myself committing more than 11 or 12 hours a week that I commit to a marathon now, which gets me around that 125 to 135 k's a week. If I'm not going to be extending myself to say 160 k's a week, am I going to be able to shave off those extra minutes, or is it purely just consistency and time on legs at running those Ks? Maybe that will get me to that point. And then you ask yourself, like, what happens next? It's always
Yeah.
the question. It goes on and on. But I feel like I never would have thought in my life I would run a 257, and I still don't believe that I will run a 245. But I'm going to give it my best shot to do so. Yeah. How about you, mate? How was your week?
Yeah, I quite good after Frio. So straight back into it Monday. I think I did wake up quite sore. So I did park my recovery run until later that day. I did work from home that day, so that just gave me the opportunity to just drive down to the coast and do the 50 minutes there. This week, generally Tina prescribes 3 workouts, so Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But Tuesday ended up being an easy day, which was great for the legs. Wednesday was the day off, and then straight into Thursday's workout, which usually is a tempo session that is a variance of 3x8s through to 3x12s at tempo effort, which for me is about 4 minutes per K. But this week was a bit different. So Tina prescribed an alternating K sesh. On paper, she wanted me to do 1K at 3:35s, which is effectively my 5K effort, or target 5K effort, with the 1K alternating of 3:55, which is sub my half marathon pace. So 4 lots of that, so 8Ks of work, no recovery. So 1K at 3:35s, then 1K at 3:55s, and repeat that 4 times. So I had yourself, Audwin, and Matt Smerelli helping me out on that session, and I think it was safe to say that we all struggled to do that workout. And although the 3:35s were okay in the sense of the hard effort, it was the somewhat recovery effort of 3:55 that absolutely, cooked us. I think I managed the first rep okay, so 3:35, 3:55 was okay. And then the second 3:35 rep started to cook a little bit. So I think that was a 3:37. The second lot of 3:55s, I think I just slowed down completely. So, and I think by then it was only Matt Smerelli that finished the workout off, and we all struggled to finish it. So the thing to note, I think, was on Thursdays we run past the front runner group. Now, I think we've joked in our running chat that we always run past the front runner group and we always correct our form just to look good in front of whoever the coach is that week. So I think this week was Ben Green. So, you made sure I looked good in front of Ben Green. I'm sure Ben Green doesn't give a crap about what we looked like or who we are. And then after we ran past, and I think you sort of hit that north side patio area, I then stopped and dry heaved a bit. So no, it was a tough session in the end. And afterwards, Tina spoke about this ultimately progressing into what will become a marathon session where you would alternate between a faster effort and then recovering at a marathon pace, which, to me, is definitely not 3:55. But if my goal is to run a sub 3 marathon at the Gold Coast marathon next year, that slower
Mm.
alternating K will ultimately be 4:15s or 4:10s, whatever it may be. So since then, Tina has since adjusted the pace. So we're going to try it again in a couple of weeks' time. So the adjusted paces are 3:45s for the faster effort, which is more closely aligned to a 10K pace. And then the
Mm-hmm.
slower K is 4:05s, which is still faster than my marathon pace effort, but it's a little,
Yeah.
hopefully it's a little bit more manageable. So we'll see how we go with when that comes around in a couple of weeks' time. Friday
Yeah.
ended up being an easy, I think, 50 minutes. Or Saturday was the usual Saturday interval, so 4 by 4 minute type effort with 1 minute jog recovery. And then Sunday was, about 90-minute long run. So managed to squeeze that in quite early on a Sunday because I had a lot of stuff on Sunday. So that takes me to 70 Ks roughly. So
Yeah. So I guess you're doing three workouts a week. One of those being typically, or at least in the last 8 weeks, was a tempo or a threshold. And then it sounds like you're doing two workouts a week that are kind of targeting that 5K pace, but maybe at different intervals. So some of them are like 1 minute ons or 2 minute ons, and the others are like longer reps at 4 minutes. I guess, has Tina explained to you the importance of jogging in between those reps, or are you able to walk them, or is it more important that you're actually jogging and maintaining a reasonable pace in between the recoveries to provide some benefit to those reps? Even if you might not hit them, you obviously you're still moving, so you're not getting the static recovery that you might otherwise.
yeah, and I think that is that shift that's occurred lately. So I think it's more now that I'm getting fitter, not needing the static
Mm,
recovery to fully recover. And I guess it's that balancing act of have the strength to be able to hold the pace, but also not rely on a static
mm.
recovery to fully recover. So my next race is the Founders Cup on the 8th of December. So that's the 4K I'm doing. So that will be able to test how long I can hold the 3:35 pace for, and whether there's signs that I can do that for the 5K. I don't think it has been announced yet, but the night of the 2 and 5,000 meters, which is the state championships, there may still be a community run. So if that's the case, then that's my plan.
I mean, yeah, I'll be running that one with you. So hopefully we can work off of each other like we did last year a little bit. Get us both under that 18-minute mark. That'd be good.
So let's go to some results. So over the weekend, we had the Sandman 50. That was on Saturday, the 16th of November. So look, a unique event in WA that involves a run at 2 a.m. or, in the middle of the night. And I guess the course is quite simple. It's a race from Old Dunsborough Boat Ramp through to the Bottleton Jetty and back, with events including the 50K solo through to the 2 by 25K relay. In the results, we had Ethan Stirrat winning in 3 hours 51 and 6 seconds, and the first female over the line was Vici Richardson in 4 hours 31:57. So very quick times running on sand. I know we've talked briefly about whether or not we'd ever do Sandman 50, but running at 2 a.m., Chris, what do you reckon? Would you be able to run at 2 a.m.? How would you prepare for an event like this?
I mean, I have run at 3 a.m. before, I think, when our kids were quite young and got woken up in the middle of the night. I probably went for a 3 a.m. run because I just couldn't sleep. But it definitely wasn't 50 kilometers on sand. I don't, to be honest, I don't know. You probably have to be doing a lot of running on the beach to actually get yourself used to the camber of the beach, I guess, to get you, because you're running 25 kilometers in one direction. One side of your leg is going to be a bit more fatigued than the other, and then you swap over and do the other side. So yeah,
Mm.
it's an interesting one. And I've been, my understanding of that stretch of beach, there's there are some little inlets that kind of, or like kind of waterways that kind of jet out to the ocean there too. So you're probably doing a couple of water crossings through there, which, with the sand and wet socks is not something I don't think I do, but, kudos to everyone who does. It'd be great to do it in the middle of the night like that. I think, you're basically finishing it as the sun's coming up. It's pretty special, I imagine.
So,
Yeah.
looking at the teams, the winner of the team relay was Cheaper Than Therapy. So that's a team made up of Connor Farrell and Miles Allen in 3 hours 49, 12 seconds, edging out a team called Mission Possible, made up of Shelley Smith and one of our favorite names that we mentioned on the podcast, Zacheus Gildersleeve, in 3 hours 50 minutes and 50 seconds. So congrats to both teams, and congrats to Zacheus Gildersleeve for a wonderful name. Big shout out to Kevin Matthews, Big Kev, who came 8 in 4 hours 35 and 25 seconds. He did write a blog post that I believe he released a couple of days ago. So what we might do is chuck that in the show notes for people to read up on it. Shall we move to the Strive event on Saturday night?
Yeah, a little bit of track. So we had the Strive men's 5,000 meters on Saturday night. Looked like a pretty good race. It was a very windy evening, from what I could tell. I mean, I went for a run about 4:30, and I think we had 8 or 9 runners running sub 16 in that race. Of a possible, I think there was maybe 15 runners from the top of my head. So yeah, pretty quick. Winning that was Tom Moorcroft in a time of 14:38, beating Owen Smith in a time of 14:43. That's insane. But the one result, there's actually probably a couple of shout outs, but the one that I did take note of was Christian Perkis, who I mentioned last week. I beat Christian. He's only 16 or something. I beat him in the Community B race last year in a time of 18:11. So he ran 18:05 on the weekend. I'm sure he's capable of much faster than that. I think he ran sub 18 the April just gone at the Bridges. So I'm looking forward, Christian, if you're listening, I'm looking forward to a rematch in January. More than happy to line up against you again, mate. It'd be good. So yeah, my soul is safe for now. The other mention guess we're going to throw up there was Matt Jones, friend of the show. He ran a 19:58 sub 20. Maybe not his best run. I think he's run roughly an 18:40 odd before, only a few weeks ago. But I think, maybe going out a little hot, or potentially, not eating at the right time of day, potentially might have cost him a bit of time there. So hopefully a better one next time, Matt.
We'll move on to the Run Bibbulmun track stage race. So this is a 3-day trail running stage race that went from Friday through to Sunday, and it's along sections of the Bibbulmun track. It has historically been a team format, but they have since changed it a bit this year to be a little bit more inclusive and accommodating for different runners of different abilities, but also for solo runners who might not have a team to be able to compete with. So there's a long course option and short course options for each of those 3 days, with the event being a UTMB qualifying race that you also get International Trail Running Association points as well on top of that. So just briefly on the 3 days and the course profile. Day 1 looks to be a 34.5k for the long course with about 665 meters of climbing, short course being roughly half of that. Day 2 is 33.2ks with 740 meters of climbing. Short course is 24ks for that second day, and the third day is 39.3ks with 850 meters of climbing, the short course being a half marathon distance with 500. So it seems like it's getting progressively harder each day, with the total 3 days for the long course reaching 108ks. With the short course being 63k. So brutal event. Don't you think I'll ever do this? Overall, in the long course men, we had Joel Gray taking it out in 9 hours, 11 minutes in total, followed by Luke Gordon, 10 hours and 45, and Samuel Burke in 11 hours and 10 minutes. overall in the long course women, we had Victoria Cole in 10:34:45 and second overall. Sarah Paduano in 12 hours and 2 minutes, and Natasha Pertwee in 12 hours and 31 minutes. In the short course, in the men, we had Lockie and McDougall in 5 hours 44. Ryan Meldrum in 6 hours 22 minutes, and Shannon Dixon in 6 hours 25. And in the short course women, we had Christy Laurie in 6 hours 3 minutes, Rebecca Dugans in 7 hours 12 minutes, and Penny Fagan in 7 hours and 14. So impressive times for those distances over the 3 days. Looks to be a mammoth event, and seeing some of the photos on the socials, it looked to be a spectacular views across the 3 days as well. So apologies for not being able to preempt this race. We didn't preview it or knew it was happening, but looking at the social posts and the results, it was an impressive one to see. Shall we move on to the Great World Race?
Yes. So I guess that was one of the big events this week, which people might have seen down near Burswood. There was there was a call out during the week actually from the Marathon Club to see if there's any volunteers that wanted to help out. But effectively, this race is as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's 7 continents, 7 marathons in 7 days, right? So this is I guess anyone can enter it. However, it costs 49,500 euros to do this event. So anyone who thinks they've spent a lot of money on their 6 stars, take a good hard look at yourself. This is the real deal. No, we had two Australians actually running. We had Andrew Thorpe and Scott Kerrison. So the first leg was Antarctica. So it started on the 15th of November. So we had a first race in Antarctica. It was a 20 kilometer loop, non-technical, very picturesque course of a lot of white snow, I'd imagine. Now, the male winner was William Monsell from Ireland, winning in a time of 2 hours and 38 minutes and 42 seconds on the snow. That's officially the fastest marathon ever run in Antarctica. And the female winner was Ashley Paulson from the USA in a time of 3 hours, 18 minutes and 2 seconds. The fastest Australian being Andrew Thorpe, running 3:47:57. Leg 2 was South Africa in Cape Town. That's 6 laps of a 7-kilometre circuit. Again, William Monsell won that in 2 hours and 34. So that's 2 days back to back. A little bit quicker on the second day because he's obviously not running on snow. And then 4 women they all ran the same time together. That was on the 16th. And the 17th was the race that was here in Perth. It was a 5.275 kilometre loop around Optus Stadium, Crown Casino, and the Wyndham Bridge. So 8 loops. Probably not the most picturesque course that Perth has to offer, but presumably they've got very limited time to fly these people in every day after their race the previous day, and then they have to provide all of the services on course to be able to sustain a marathon. William Munsell won again in the 2 hour 36, so that's 3 2:30s in 3 days. And again, 4 women finishing all together in 3 hours 2 minutes and 54 seconds. So people are obviously crossing the line here together. And then the following day on the 18th was Istanbul in Turkey, the Europe edition. So Turkey's actually hosting 2 days in a row, one on the Europe side and one on the Asian side. William Munsell, again, 2:43:39. So he's starting to tire now, Simon. It looks like he's dropping off at leg 4. And Hilary Capiche from the USA won in a time of 3 hours, 5 minutes and 44 seconds. So the next leg, as I said, is the Asian side of Istanbul. And then they move on to Cartagena in Colombia, in South America, and the final leg is at South Beach in Miami, in North America. So, look, I'm sure that these races aren't about winning. I'm sure it's all about participation. But yeah, that is a chunk of money.
I will, and I know my wife Linda will listen to this episode, so I think I'll just reiterate that there are people out there spending almost 50,000 euros for just a hobby that is running. So that might justify my 8 pairs of Metaspeed Skies when I go to Japan at the end of this year. And hopefully there'll be no complaints there. I'm sure a lot of the destinations as part of the 7 marathons is quite picturesque, and I'm sure it is an amazing experience being able to fly in and out of different continents across the world. But it's a shame that when they go and do the Australia leg, the best that they're going to get is 8 loops of Crown Casino, Optus Stadium, which although is quite pretty and nice, but then to do a lap and then do a turnaround at Wyndham Bridge, I don't know if it's probably up there as the best marathon experience out of the 7.
No, yeah, I mean, I could have thought of better places to do it in Perth, but obviously it's out of the way. There's no footy on this time of year. There's no cricket on yet, so it's and it's close to the marathon club. So I'd be interested to know how they actually became a candidate for this. How many cities or countries put their hands up in order to do it.
Yeah, definitely. We will make mention of the Point to Pinnacle half marathon that was over the weekend. So that's been marketed as the world's hardest half marathon. And I'm led to believe that it is a half marathon that is just up a mountain, is what I'm led to believe. So it's just 21 Ks up a hill, and with an elevation profile of 1,271 meters across the half marathon distance. So that seems remarkable. Looking at the results there, we had James Hansen winning in 1 hour 25 and Millie Clark in 1 hour 41, which is ridiculous times there. But special mention to WA runner, Warp listener, and Wolves Run Club member Brian Burke, who ran an impressive time of 2 hours and 4 minutes. I believe this was backing it up after doing the 5K at Freo over the weekend, and which he ran a sub 20s. So a remarkable effort, Brian. And I think he must have beaten some fast athletes based on our intel in Dan Brobridge. So very impressive effort, Brian.
Yeah, no, it seems like Dan's still keen to do a bit of the admin of the Warp, so we're very appreciative of his hot tips that he provides.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he's still keen on just trolling us throughout the week. So it seems like he doesn't have time to record episodes, but is still keen on doing the admin, and we appreciate that, Dan. So we'll move on to running news and upcoming events. And I know we covered the Sydney Marathon last ep. But there has been updates to people receiving those ballot emails. So did you get one?
I did. I finally got my email. I was very excited. So I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. But so what I read on the email was that effectively the first 3 years of Sydney as a major, anybody who entered the candidate races in the last couple of years, it's given 2 preferences effectively of those 3 years to be able to run. So it's basically a guaranteed entry within the ballot that they provide for those candidacy participants. And then if you don't get your first, you'll get your second preference. And so those are 25, 26, 27. I put my 2 preferences in for 26 and 27 just because next year is looking pretty full on with Gold Coast and Transcend now on the cards. So yeah, you still have to pay for a ticket, of course. It's not going to be any cheaper for anyone that ran a candidacy race, but it does give a lot of people an opportunity to run their first major potentially. And yeah, just be good to be a part of that race in its infancy, I guess, and supporting it as it grows and becomes more international.
Friend of the show, Rach Nathan, sent me a screenshot of the options of being able to run 2025, 2026, 2027. I like the option of I've retired from running as preference number 1, and also the second preference of seriously, I've retired from running. So glad that Sydney was able to provide those options for those that do not want to run a marathon ever again. So that was the Sydney Marathon updates there. Next on our run sheet was some whispers that we had heard from avid listeners of the show that there was a potential unofficial test run of an upcoming new park run location in Lake Monger. And I think this has been sort of whispers for quite some time. So we've got no good authority to let you guys know that there is a trial park run at Lake Monger this Saturday. So may or may not happen. If you do have good authority, please do let us know that if that's the case or whether or not we're just talking shit. But yeah, Lake Monger park run, Chris. Would you do a park run event at Munger?
Probably not in the first few months when there's probably going to be 800 people there. But I would. I mean, it's a fast spot to run, right? No doubt about it. And it doesn't. From the course that we were showing in the week, it appears that it's not a. It's a lap course effectively. So you're kind of starting at one point. You're then kind of coming off that outer rim and then circling the inner rim, coming back onto the outer rim. So it does look like a lap course, which is nice, a bit like Bibra Lake or Canning River. Those are kind of a lapped park run courses. There's no turns. So, yeah, look, I would do it. It would be fast, but probably not at the start just because of sheer numbers, and the parking would be an absolute nightmare.
I think there's a couple of park runs nearby there, right? So there's one in Perry Lakes. We frequent Yokine as well. So I reckon there'll be that initial swarm where it'll just be absolutely packed, but hopefully over time it starts to space out in terms of the numbers there. But you're right, Lake Monger gets busy in the best of times, and we tend to do our Thursday workouts there, and now at 5:30 in the morning we're starting to see a lot of people showing up and walking or running on those footpaths. So I imagine the first month of park runs there, should it start officially, will be absolutely hectic. But another park run event to add to the WA list there, so that was exciting to see. What we've said in previous eps is some of the Marathon Club events coming up. So you said the Shoreline Run, that's on the 1st of December, that has distances in the 15k, 3k and 7.5k. We've got the Perth Trail Summer Series starting on the 1st as well, with Stay Puffed in Yanchep National Park, with a couple of distances there. We do have our own community run, but also another community run that is on is the Mo Then a Run, which is on Saturday the 30th of November. That's organised by, I believe, Wolves Running and Dose Running, with a couple of other run clubs joining, with 30k and 10k options, with the aim of finishing all together at the same time. Shall we talk about the Transcend bet? So
big news.
So look, we did do a call out in last week's ep around a potential Transcend bet, with the options being us two versus Dan or Matt, or us forming a team called Team Warp up against either avid listeners, or we did the call out to Team Crap to see if they were interested. We did hear from Team Crap over the weekend in their latest app. So they proposed that they form a team of non-casual runners, which included the likes of Mackenzie Burgoyne, Jack Crago and Joel Lambert, in addition to Haydo and Shannon. Thoughts on the team?
Very excited about it. Sounds like a challenge, Simon. So, every one of those runners is accomplished in their own way. I don't think any. There's no lie that Shannon and Hayden aren't all that casual. To be honest, they're pretty competitive in their own way. Whether it be Shannon trying to be the first one to sub 20, or Hayden just wanting to drink the most beers. So, and obviously Jack, Joel, and Mackenzie have their own very fast marathon times to show off. So, look, we'll be up against it for sure.
Yeah, and look, they've proposed that they'll sign up as Team Crap and face up against us on the condition that we do a beer mile event with them. So what they're proposing is, a bunch of young bloods taking on a couple of dads who, back in the day could drink 4 beers and run 400 meters at a time, but I know at the young age of our mid to late 30s, I don't know how we'll fare in the beer mile, but I think
Mm,
what we're saying is that we're going to accept and see how we fare on the
yep.
condition that they do transcend with us. So that look, we accept Team Crap in terms of the nominations that form that team. We accept the beer mile event whenever that is scheduled for. We'll be in discussions over the next couple of months for that. In terms of Team Warp,
Hmm.
look, Matt has said yes. Dan technically says yes, right? I don't think we've got the official word from Dan just yet, but we assume he's in. We've noticed that he's started some 30-minute runs around his neighborhood this week, so I think he's motivated now. We just need to get Matt off the golf
Mm.
course and into a couple of 30-minute treadmill runs at 1% vert, and more importantly, we spoke to Sinead this week, and our star athlete of the podcast. And on the comeback trail, Sinead Freeberg is in.
Mm.
So look, looks like the bet's on.
Massive.
Looks like the bet is on. So
Yeah.
we'll work out logistics of registrations and locking in officially. But I think we're in. And then once we're all signed up,
Yeah.
we'll go through what the bet will entail. So what do you think in terms of being up against Team Crab? Is there anything? Is there anyone there on that list that we should be worried about?
I will. We should be worried about Mackenzie Burgoyne with his FKT attempts. He's obviously very accomplished in the on the trails, and Shannon's described him as a mountain goat. So um, yeah, definitely one to watch for there. Jack's obviously had a crack at it earlier in the year. Maybe it didn't quite work out the way he'd wanted, but look, he has more Instagram followers than you, myself, Matt, Dan, and Sinead, and the Warp Collective combined. So that's something that's got to account for something, surely.
Yeah. And then Joel looks to have done a 250 marathon at Perth Running Festival last year. So that's pretty quick. I think the most dangerous person of all is definitely Hayden McGregor. Not only is he keen on beer mile, and I think he's probably got a skill up his sleeve in the beer mile that we need to be conscious of. But I
Yeah.
did do a bit of Strava stalking over the weekend, and I did note that he did run a 5 hour 29 marathon at the Gold Coast Marathon in 2019. So he's got a lot of time on legs.
Mm,
So very dangerous. I reckon he's probably the dark horse of that team that we need to be wary of. So look, seems like the bet's on.
definitely.
We'll sort out logistics of registration, and maybe we'll get the guys on the show one time to talk bets and punishments once the bet is set.
Yeah. Look, we probably need to get our shit together because I think Shane posted, on the Saturday that, or the Sunday that 1/3 of the tickets had already sold. So you look, the next couple of weeks we'll pull our finger out, and and Shane's offered to take us out on a few runs to build up our tolerance to the hills and maybe allay our fears. So fingers crossed, we'll be prepared after a marathon block and a few hills. Yeah, it'd be good.
Really excited to see what comes out of this. Very uneasy about what beer mile will look like for a bunch of parents, and I don't think we've officially told Sinead that she may or may not be involved in a beer mile event. So um, I guess she'll find out once she listens to this episode. Shall we move into Warp Admin, Chris?
Yeah. Look, we've got, I mean, in the past, we've gone through the Warp leaderboards and talked about the most elevation, the most kilometers, but, there's lots of weird and wonderful things that happen on Warp. And we like to call these people our weapons of Warp. I guess there's been a few things that we've seen this week that have caught our eye. A lot of gym selfies without shirts on, which is great. Always appreciated. I always wonder, where those photos end up. Like if you're young and in your 20s and you're posting photos of yourself on a public forum, where do those photos go? And then other things such as people mislabeling their runs. I think sometimes you have a bad run or you're just not as fast as you think you are, so you need to just own it. You and I, we own our mistakes or our our vomit reps, all those kinds of things. We tell it like it is. And, when someone's going out for an easy, a so-called 30-kilometer easy run that's just below their marathon pace, you have to ask the question, don't you? So,
Yeah, I think I noticed from someone who uh, described their 10K run as a chill run, despite the fact that they ran at 4:13 pace, and it was officially their third fastest 10K on Strava. So you do have to question whether or not that was as chill as they said they would run. I think a Strava habit that I used to do back in the day, but I've learnt a bit better since then is, when I used to do Claysbrook Park Run, and I used to stop my watch bang on 5Ks, even though the fact that I wasn't it wasn't across the finish line, because I used to think 5K Strava PBs was a thing. But I did notice, and thanks to a listener that forwarded a screenshot, someone who did Claysbrook Park Run recently, and they stopped their run, at the cove bit. So, I don't know if you're familiar, Chris, but you run the cove and then you finish up Heartbreak Hill to the park where the finishing line is. And it seemed like their Claysbrook Park Run finished right bang on the Claysbrook Cove bit. So very questionable there, claiming the Strava 5K BB. So very questionable there, but it's one of the perils of Strava. The whole idea of a social media platform to brag about your running journey. So that's one of the weird and wonderful things that we see on Strava. So if there is anything weird and wonderful that you see on Strava that you think that we should call out, feel free to tag us, and we will discreetly mention that activity on each episode of Warp. So I think that's it for us. We do have the community run that is on Friday, the 29th of November. So perhaps in the next episode, we'll reveal more finer details as to the event itself and where to meet and so forth. Our socials is our Instagram is WA Running Pod. Our email is warunningpod@outlook.com. Our Strava group is Warp in the Strava app. And I think that's it for us. So thanks for listening, everyone. And I guess we'll catch you all again on the WA Running Podcast.
See you guys.